All right, ready to dive in. We're tackling the 7 habits of highly effective people today.
It's a big one.
It is. And it's a classic for a reason.
Definitely a classic.
So we're going to unearth some nuggets of wisdom here, the stuff that can really make a difference.
You know, it's interesting how many self-help books just offer these like quick fixes, right?
Yeah.
Surface level advice.
Yeah.
But 7 habits really goes deeper. You know, it's about building a solid foundation based on principles.
Yeah.
This true inside-out approach.
I love that Covey starts with the idea of paradigms.
Yeah.
Those mental maps we all use to navigate the world.
Yeah.
He uses that great example of trying to get around Chicago, but with a map of Detroit.
Yeah.
Like, no matter how hard you try,
You're going to be lost.
you're going to end up lost.
Absolutely.
It's just the wrong map.
Yeah, you got to have the right map.
Right.
It's the same with our lives.
Totally.
If our paradigms, if our deeply held beliefs and assumptions are just flawed, our efforts are going to be misdirected.
Oh, yeah.
We might think we're working towards success,
Yeah.
but we're actually like sabotaging ourselves without even realizing it.
This makes me think about all those times I felt stuck in a rut. Like, I'm working hard,
Yeah.
but not getting anywhere. So maybe I need to examine my own paradigms.
Here's a good starting point.
Right. Covey contrasts the character ethic with the personality ethic, right?
He does, yeah.
Tell me more about that.
He basically argues that so often we get caught up in trying to change our personality, you know, our outward behavior to try to achieve success.
Yeah.
But true lasting change, the kind that really makes a difference, comes from working on our character, developing those core principles like integrity, honesty, fairness.
So it's not just about, like, learning how to manage your time better or becoming a smooth talker.
Right.
It's about developing those fundamental qualities that really will make you a truly effective person.
It's an inside job.
Right.
And that's what he means by those private victories, you know?
Yep.
We need to conquer those internal battles first, build a strong foundation of character before we can really achieve those public victories
Yes.
in our interactions with others.
So let's talk about those private victories.
Okay.
Habit 1 is all about being proactive.
Big one.
I feel like I hear this word everywhere.
It's everywhere these days.
But what does it actually mean in the context of this book?
I think the key here is recognizing that you are not just a product of your circumstances,
Okay.
but a conscious being, right? With the power to choose your response
Yes.
to any situation.
That's powerful.
Yeah, it is. It is.
It's about focusing your energy on what you can control,
Right.
your circle of influence.
Yes.
Rather than getting stuck in that circle of concern, right?
That's the key.
The circle of influence.
Yeah.
This reminds me of that time when I was so overwhelmed at work. My to-do list was just a mile long.
I've been there.
And I felt like I was just constantly putting out fires.
Yeah.
And I was stuck in that circle of concern, worrying about things that were beyond my control, ultimately.
It's a common trap.
It is.
And that's when you can really apply the principle of proactivity.
Okay.
Instead of just dwelling on the problems, you can ask yourself, what can I do right now to make a positive impact? What are the things within my control that I can really focus on?
Exactly.
It's a shift.
And it's amazing how that simple shift in perspective can make such a difference.
It really can.
Covey also talks about how reactive people tend to use language that makes them feel powerless. Like, I can't, or if only.
Yeah, they get stuck.
Right.
Proactive people choose their words more carefully.
Yes.
They say things like, I will, or let's look at our alternatives.
Yes.
It's a different mindset.
It's about taking ownership of your choices and recognizing that you have more agency than you might think.
You do.
You really do.
More than you think.
One of my favorite stories from the book is about the executive who had a terrible boss.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
This boss created so many problems, made everyone's life miserable.
Yeah.
But instead of complaining and blaming his boss,
Right?
this executive proactively worked to compensate for his boss's weaknesses.
Took ownership.
He did.
And in doing so, he not only improved the situation for himself and his colleagues, but he also expanded his own circle of influence.
Yes.
He demonstrated his competence and his leadership,
Right.
which ultimately led to greater opportunities for him
Yes.
within the company.
It's like this saying, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change.
Yeah.
The courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
That's it.
That's the essence of proactivity.
It really is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's a principle that can be applied to any area of life, really.
It can.
It's about taking responsibility for your choices, focusing on what you can control, and using your energy to make a positive impact.
Love it.
Okay, so we're on to habit 2.
Right.
Begin with the end in mind.
Another big one.
This always gets me thinking about legacy. You know, it's about imagining your life from a different perspective.
I think that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Covey asks us to envision attending our own funeral.
Whoa.
What would we want people to say about us?
Yeah.
What kind of impact did we make on the world?
That's deep,
It is.
but it's so valuable,
It is.
right? This thought experiment forces us to confront our deepest values and priorities.
Exactly.
It can be unsettling, sure,
It can.
but it's incredibly valuable.
It forces you to confront those big questions.
Right, and it leads to the idea of writing a personal mission statement, right?
Yes.
Not just for businesses, but for our own lives. A personal mission statement is like a compass that guides your decisions and actions.
Keeps you on track.
It does. It articulates your core values, and it helps you stay focused on what truly matters most.
What really matters.
I find it incredibly empowering to think that we can craft our own missions,
It can.
our own definitions of success.
You have the power.
It's about taking control of our lives and charting our own course.
Absolutely.
And Covey doesn't just stop at writing the mission statement.
No, he goes further.
He talks about visualization and affirmation as tools
Powerful tool.
to help us align our daily actions with our long-term goals.
It's about creating that clear mental picture,
Yes.
right, of your desired outcomes.
Yeah.
And using that picture to motivate and guide you.
So it's not just about dreaming big.
Right.
It's about actively working towards those dreams, taking those concrete steps each day to make them a reality.
Exactly.
That brings us to habit 3.
Okay, number 3.
Put first things first.
Yes, prioritization.
This is where Covey introduces that famous time management matrix,
Very famous.
which is all about prioritizing effectively and making sure that we're focusing on the activities that truly matter.
The things that move the needle.
This is the one that really stuck with me, honestly.
I can see why.
I mean, who hasn't felt overwhelmed by the sheer number of tasks
It's the modern condition.
and demands on our time?
We're all so busy.
But Covey's matrix gives us a framework for making sense of it all.
It's a great framework.
It is.
He divides our activities into those 4 quadrants, right?
Yes.
Urgent and important, not urgent, but important. Urgent, but not important, and not urgent and not important.
And he stresses that importance of focusing on quadrant 2, right?
Yes.
The activities that are important, but not urgent.
It's the sweet spot.
They're often neglected
They are.
because they don't have that immediate deadline.
Yeah, no fire alarm going off.
But they're the ones that contribute the most to our long-term goals and well-being, like planning, building relationships,
Yeah, the important stuff.
taking care of our health.
The stuff that matters.
It's about shifting our focus from just being busy to being effective.
Right.
Covey tells that funny anecdote about a colleague who was super organized
Yeah, I remember.
and efficiency.
Yes. But then got totally thrown off track when he had to break up with his girlfriend.
Oh, right.
It turned out to be way more complicated
More drama than he expected.
than he anticipated.
Life happens.
It does.
Sometimes those urgent things aren't actually the most important.
Right. We need to be adaptable and
Absolutely.
prioritize those relationships and activities that contribute to our overall well-being.
Couldn't agree more.
And Covey makes a distinction between different generations of time management, right?
He does, yeah.
Tell me about that.
So third generation time management, that focuses on efficiency,
Okay.
on doing things right.
Okay.
But fourth generation time management shifts the focus to effectiveness.
Oh, to doing the right things.
That's a crucial distinction.
It is. It is.
So far, we've focused on those private victories.
Yes.
Proactivity, beginning with the end in mind and putting first things first.
Foundation.
They lay the groundwork for personal effectiveness.
They do. They do. They're about becoming independent and self-governing.
Okay.
But true effectiveness also involves interacting with others.
Yes.
Which leads us to those public victories, the habits that help us build strong and healthy relationships.
Okay, let's talk about those. So we're moving from that independence to interdependence now.
Hurrah.
From self-mastery to the art of building those strong relationships.
Yeah.
feels like a natural progression.
It does. You can't have a solid, trusting relationship
Yeah.
without first being secure in yourself.
Right.
But once that foundation is there,
Okay.
we can really dive into habit 4.
Right.
Think win-win.
Yes.
This is a big one.
Such a popular phrase.
It is, and it's often misunderstood.
I think a lot of people hear win-win and they picture like cheesy negotiation tactics
Oh, yeah.
or some kind of like forced compromise.
Right. Not at all what Covey's talking about.
But Covey's talking about something much deeper.
Much deeper.
All right.
Yeah. It starts with a mindset shift.
Okay.
A belief that there's plenty to go around
Okay.
and that one person's success doesn't have to come at the expense of another.
Mm-hmm.
He calls this the abundance mentality,
The abundance mentality.
a key principle here.
Okay. So it's about creating situations where everyone benefits, where
Exactly.
we all feel like we've come out ahead.
That's the goal.
But how do we actually do that? How do we put that into practice?
Well, Covey introduces this metaphor of the emotional bank account.
Okay. I like this one.
Yeah, just like with a financial bank account, we make deposits
Right.
through acts of kindness, courtesy, honesty, and keeping commitments.
So these deposits build trust,
They do.
which is really the foundation of any healthy relationship.
It is.
This makes me think about all those little things we do every day that either strengthen or weaken our relationships.
It's the little things that add up.
Like taking the time to really listen to someone,
Huge deposit.
or remembering an important date,
Yeah, shows you care.
or simply saying thank you.
Basic courtesy, but so important.
These are all deposits, right?
They are.
And just like withdrawals from a bank account can deplete our funds,
Absolutely.
negative behaviors like disrespect, dishonesty, or breaking promises,
Big withdrawals.
those can really damage relationships.
They can chip away at that trust.
He tells a funny story in the book, though,
Oh yeah, which one?
about a guy who's terrified of his wife calling while he's at this conference
Oh, right.
because she would just grill him about what he was doing.
Yeah, he was paranoid.
And it
That's
turned out
reason.
there was a reason for his paranoia. He'd met his current wife at a similar event
Oops.
while he was still married to someone else.
Yeah, that'll do it.
It's a good reminder that building trust takes time
It does.
and consistency. And sometimes our past actions
Yeah.
can make it even harder to earn that trust.
You got to rebuild that account.
Right.
It takes effort.
Okay, so we've got the abundance mentality
Yes.
and the emotional bank account as that foundation for thinking win-win.
A foundation.
What else is involved in actually creating these win-win situations?
So Covey breaks it down
Okay.
into 5 dimensions.
5 dimensions.
Character,
Remember that?
relationships,
Yep.
agreements,
Gotcha.
systems, and processes.
It's comprehensive.
It is.
Character being the cornerstone.
Absolutely the foundation.
You need integrity, maturity, and that abundance mentality we talked about.
It all starts there.
So you can't just fake it till you make it with win-win.
Nope.
It has to come from a genuine place.
From the inside out.
What about those other dimensions?
So, relationships.
Okay.
That involves building those strong connections based on trust and mutual respect.
Makes sense.
Agreements mean being clear about expectations, roles, responsibilities.
Right, so everyone's on the same page.
Systems should support cooperation
Yes.
rather than competition.
It's about working together,
It is.
not against each other.
And processes should be designed to facilitate fairness and open communication.
So it sounds like creating a true win-win culture.
Yeah,
It's an ongoing process
it is.
that involves every aspect of an organization or relationship.
It's a way of life.
It really is.
And Covey even says there are times when win-win just isn't possible.
Okay.
You know, you're better off walking away from the negotiation.
Right.
It's not about forcing a win at all costs.
Yeah. Sometimes you just have to walk away.
It's about finding solutions that genuinely benefit everyone involved.
That makes sense.
If you can't find that, it's better to move on.
This leads us to habit 5.
All right, habit 5.
Seek first to understand, then to be understood.
Such an important principle.
This was all about communication, obviously.
It is, but it's deeper than just talking and listening.
It goes way beyond just talking and listening, right?
Way beyond.
It's about empathic listening,
Empathic listening, that's the key.
which is a whole different level of listening.
It is. It's not about waiting for your turn to speak or formulating your response in your head.
Right.
It's about truly putting yourself in the other person's shoes
Yes.
and trying to understand their perspective.
Covey talks about how we often try to solve problems
Yeah.
before we've even taken the time to fully understand them.
We jump to solutions.
Right.
Without really understanding the problem.
He uses the example of a parent trying to help their child who's struggling in school.
Oh, yeah. Classic example.
It's so tempting to just jump in with advice and solutions.
It is. We want to fix things.
But first, we need to understand what the child is actually going through.
We need to listen.
Right.
We often listen with the intent to reply,
Yeah.
not to understand.
That's a good distinction.
We're so focused on getting our point across
Right.
that we miss what the other person is really saying.
We don't truly hear them.
Empathic listening involves paying attention
Okay.
to not just the words being spoken,
Right.
but also the body language, the tone of voice,
Yeah.
the emotions behind the message.
It's about creating a safe space
Yes.
where the other person feels heard and validated.
That's so important for building trust.
And this ties back to the emotional bank account, right?
It does.
When we practice empathic listening, we make a huge deposit into that relationship.
We're showing that we value the other person
Right.
and their perspective.
Covey also brings in the Greek philosophy of ethos, pathos, and logos,
He does, yeah.
which adds another layer to effective communication.
It's not just about the words we use.
No.
It's about who we are,
Right.
how we connect with others.
And the logic and reasoning behind our message.
It's all part of the equation.
He shares that great story about an executive
I love that story.
who successfully negotiated a complex contract by first taking the time to deeply understand the other party's needs.
He listened first,
He did,
before he spoke.
and concerns, and only after establishing that understanding
Yeah.
did he present his own perspective.
He built that foundation of understanding first.
But that's such a powerful example of how putting habit 5 into practice can lead to those positive outcomes.
It's a great illustration.
He didn't manipulate or pressure.
No.
He listened. And he built that foundation of understanding.
And paid off.
And this flows perfectly into habit 6,
All right, habit 6,
synergize,
the synergy.
which is all about creative cooperation
Yes.
and the power of teamwork.
The whole being greater
Right.
than the sum of its parts.
Synergy is the idea that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
Exactly.
When we bring together those different perspectives, talents, and experiences, we can achieve results that wouldn't be possible individually.
1 + 1 = 3.
Covey uses those great examples from nature
He does. I love those.
to illustrate this, right?
Yeah.
When plants are planted close together, their roots intermingle,
Right.
and they improve the quality of the soil and allow both plants to thrive.
They support each other.
And two pieces of wood
Yeah.
combined
Yeah.
can bear a much greater weight
Much greater.
than the sum of their individual strengths.
Strength and unity.
Exactly. And the same principle applies to human interaction.
Absolutely.
When we value and leverage our differences,
That's the key.
we can create truly innovative solutions.
We can.
But synergy doesn't just happen magically, does it?
No, it takes effort.
It requires a certain mindset and a willingness to embrace those different perspectives.
You have to be open.
Right.
Open to new ideas, new ways of thinking.
It requires open-mindedness.
Yes.
A genuine desire to understand other viewpoints.
Not just tolerate them, but truly understand them.
And a willingness to let go of the need to be right all the time.
That's a big one for a lot of people.
It is.
Letting go of that ego.
Covey calls this seeking the third alternative.
The third alternative, that's where the magic happens.
It's not about compromising
No.
or settling for a mediocre solution.
It's about transcending the original ideas.
It's about finding a solution that's better
Much better.
than any of the original ideas.
Yeah, something that wouldn't have been possible
Right.
without that collaborative process.
And when we combine the principles of think win-win, seek first to understand,
Yeah.
and synergize,
Powerful combination.
we create a really powerful force for positive change.
We do.
Right. We move from a transactional approach to relationships to a transformative one.
It's a whole different level of relating.
So those public victories really build on each other.
They do.
And they're ultimately rooted in those private victories that we discussed earlier.
It all comes back to those foundations.
It all comes full circle.
Full circle.
But we haven't talked about the final habit yet.
We haven't. We've saved the best for last.
Sharpen the saw.
Sharpen the saw, yes.
It's such a vivid metaphor.
It is.
Sharpen the saw.
Yeah.
Like we can't just keep cutting down trees effectively
No.
if we don't take the time to sharpen the saw.
You'll wear yourself out.
We'll wear ourselves out, right? We'll make less progress.
Exactly.
It's about recognizing that we are our most valuable asset. And just like any valuable tool, we need to take care of ourselves.
Self-care.
Covey breaks it down into 4 dimensions.
4 dimensions of renewal.
Physical, spiritual, mental, and social emotional.
It's holistic.
So it's a holistic approach to renewal,
Yeah, taking care of the whole person.
addressing all aspects of our well-being.
Mind, body, and spirit.
What are some examples of activities that fall into each dimension? I'm curious.
Well, for the physical dimension, we've got the basics.
Okay.
Exercise,
Yeah.
nutrition, sleep,
Oh, yeah.
and stress management.
So important.
These are the things that really keep our bodies functioning optimally.
I know. I feel a huge difference in my energy and focus when I'm exercising regularly
Me too.
and eating healthy foods.
It makes a difference.
It's like fueling the machine, right?
You got to put in the good stuff.
But what about the spiritual dimension? What does Covey actually mean by that?
So, it's about connecting with our core values,
So,
finding that meaning and purpose in life, cultivating a sense of inner peace.
this can involve things like meditation,
Meditation, yeah.
prayer, spending time in nature,
Connecting with something bigger than yourself.
or engaging in creative pursuits.
Absolutely.
I love that he includes that.
It's essential.
It's not just about being productive in the external world.
Right.
It's also about nurturing our inner world.
The inner work is just as important.
What about mental renewal?
Keeping our minds sharp,
Oh, right.
engaged
How do we do that?
through activities like reading,
I love to read.
learning new things, always learning.
Having those stimulating conversations
I love a good conversation.
and challenging our assumptions.
Sometimes we need to shake things up.
It's about continuous learning and growth.
And finally, social emotional renewal.
Yes, relationships.
This is all about our relationships, right?
It is.
How do we renew ourselves in that area?
Investing in those relationships.
Okay.
With family, friends, colleagues, and community members.
It's about building those strong connections,
Nurturing those bonds.
practicing empathy,
So important.
and developing our emotional intelligence.
It's all connected.
It strikes me that each of the 7 habits we've talked about contributes to one or more of these dimensions of renewal.
It's all intertwined.
It's all interconnected, right?
Yeah, it's a system.
For example, being proactive helps us take ownership of our well-being, both physically and mentally.
You're not just a victim of circumstance.
Beginning with the end in mind gives us a sense of purpose and direction,
It gives you a compass, which is essential for spiritual renewal.
knowing where you're going.
Putting first things first.
Ah, yes, time management.
It allows us to create the time and space
Yeah,
for those activities that really nourish us.
making time for what matters.
It's like this virtuous cycle.
It is a positive feedback loop,
The habits support our renewal,
and the renewal supports the habit.
and our renewal allows us to practice the habits more effectively.
It's a beautiful thing.
Covey also emphasizes the importance of our conscience.
He does, yeah.
Right. How does that fit into this whole picture?
Our conscience is that inner voice
That little voice inside.
that guides us towards what's right.
Yeah, okay.
It helps us make those ethical decisions, live in alignment with our values,
Yeah.
and contribute to the greater good.
So Sharpen the Saw isn't just about taking care of ourselves
Right.
so we can be more productive.
It's bigger than that.
It's also about becoming better human beings,
It's about character development.
developing our moral compass, and making sure our actions are in harmony with our principles.
Living with integrity.
Covey calls this an upward spiral of growth and change.
Love that image.
So it's a continuous process of learning,
Always learning.
committing, and doing,
Taking act.
leading to ever higher levels of effectiveness and fulfillment.
That's the goal.
As we wrap up this deep dive,
It's been a good one.
I'm struck by that timeless wisdom of this book.
It really is a classic.
It's been around for decades,
Yeah, it stood the test of time.
but those principles
They're universal.
are just as relevant today as they were when it was first published.
Human nature doesn't change that much.
I agree.
Covey's insights into human nature, effectiveness, and that importance of principles are truly enduring.
And he closes the book
He does.
with a really powerful quote.
One of my favorites.
That which we persist in doing becomes easier. Not that the nature of the task has changed, but our ability to do has increased.
It's about building capacity.
It's a reminder that personal growth is a journey,
It's not a destination.
not a destination.
It's ongoing.
It requires effort,
Consistent effort.
consistency,
Yeah.
and a willingness to learn and evolve.
You got to be open to change.
But the rewards are immeasurable.
They are. They are.
I encourage all of our listeners to take some time to reflect on what we've discussed today
Let it sink in.
and consider which of these habits resonates most strongly with you right now.
Which one speaks to you?
What is one small step you can take today
Yeah, just one small step.
to start incorporating these principles into your life?
It starts with that first step.
Remember, it's not about perfection
No.
or overnight transformation.
Progress, not perfection.
It's about making those small, consistent changes
A compound effect.
that will compound over time and lead to lasting positive results.
That's how you create real change.
Thanks for joining us
It's been a pleasure,
on this deep dive
as always.
into the 7 habits of highly effective people.
Until next time,
Until next time, keep learning,
keep growing
keep growing, and keep striving to live a life that is both effective
and meaningful.
and meaningful.